leadership in tech, right? So leadership principles and success stories in AWS and DevOps. So maybe we're just going to go straight away. I'll pass it over to Eddie. Just tell us, introduction about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and all of that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Once more, thanks everyone. I'm happy to be here. Like I was rightly introduced, my name is Eddie. I'm based in the US. I'm a senior DevOps engineer, stroke cloud engineer. So I'm basically part of operations team where we are concerned with cloud operations. We work closely with developers to synchronize the CI/CD process, which I'm sure most of you have heard about. So we are basically part of ensuring that the cloud operates the way it's supposed to operate in terms of operations, security, and all those good the good stuff. So yes, basically that's what I do in a nutshell, which I'm sure we'll get into more details in the course of this conversation. Yes, again, looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. And let's get to hear from Daniel. Glad to have you back again, Daniel. Let's get an intro about yourself. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Duda. A cloud DevOps engineer. I've been working in the cloud space for basically about 4 years now. I currently work in fintech. My focus has been primarily on infrastructure as code. That is Terraform and Kubernetes. But as time is going on, been taxed on picking up other tasks as a DevOps, building libraries, data functionality when it comes to backend, and also understanding key concepts with messaging queue systems like practical necessity. So that's it.
All right, great. Thank you very much for that amazing intro right there. So let's now go straight away into the nitty-gritties of today's conversation. That has to do with leadership principles in tech, as well as success stories in AWS and DevOps. So maybe let's start off with Eddie. Maybe kind of walk us through some of those key leadership principles that when you look at today's tech landscape, which is ever evolving, ever changing, those key things that you would want to highlight as solid principles for anybody who is looking forward to being a leader in this tech ecosystem. And also maybe a story, maybe from a personal standpoint, that pushed you, say, into leadership in the AWS and DevOps space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Leadership principle in the cloud. I think it works the same like it works in any field of life. Because when we talk about leadership here, I would like to say that it's not just about probably having a title to your name, maybe a tech lead, maybe a manager or things like that. Leadership principle in the cloud, just like in any field of life, is basically your ability to be able to take responsibility, be it as a junior engineer, be it as a senior engineer, in whatever capacity you find yourself in the cloud. If you are conscious of what you're doing, at some point you will have to take responsibility for work, and that is how you exhibit leadership principle. So even if you join the cloud as a junior engineer, you're coming into the cloud. For instance, let's take the case of AWS. Your resume says, for instance, you're tech savvy with AWS services. It's impossible that all the services you have on your resume, your company will be utilizing. But because they probably saw a service on your resume, they might want to explore that service in the services. Because most of these tech companies that are still trying to buy the notion of using these cloud platforms, they had other platforms that took care of things like security, for instance. They had other platforms that took care of things like monitoring. But when you're coming to them with AWS, for instance, you're telling them that AWS can actually provide you with things like that. Now, you are a junior engineer, but you are probably telling them about security tools, and they are telling you to research on some and see if you can use them in your environment. You are not yet a tech lead, you are not yet a manager, you are just a junior engineer, but they've given you a responsibility to kind of research on a security tool. That's already impact you're having on that company. So the fact that everybody, even your boss, will be looking up to you to kind of sell to them the idea of using, let me just pick one security service. Let's say the idea of using a security hub. The fact that you will be the one to sell that idea to them to see if they should use that service or not, that's already you in a leadership position, because you are researching on something, though it's an instruction given to you, but you have to bring feedback to them and they have to listen to you talk, and they have to either decide to go with that product or not based on your findings. So in your capacity, even as a junior cloud engineer, you're already expediting leadership principles, if you know what I mean. So leadership principle is something that before you get to the top, where the appellation, when we talk of leadership principle, we are looking more at the top. But leadership principle is exhibited in every phase of your career, be it tech, be it wherever you find yourself. So in the cloud, you are as good as you communicate. So communication is a very key aspect to bringing out those leadership principles you have in the cloud. If you don't shy away from responsibility, because there are people that can go for a year without taking actual responsibility that people look forward to you for presentation. That means if there are things that require challenges and you are able to embrace those challenges, your leadership principles start coming out from there, because you are able to look at those things and bring feedback. So I would say leadership principles in the cloud will start from you being able to accept those challenges that comes with the cloud and being able to communicate those challenges. Working in the cloud, it's a normal thing that every day new services come out, every day new principles come out, every day there are things to be done, there are new things that you haven't heard of. So that ability for you to step out of your comfort zone and for you to give feedback of what you realize when you stepped out of your comfort zone, those are leadership principles you're building right there. So I don't just want to look at it, but at the level of you probably being a tech lead, at the level of you probably being a senior DevOps engineer. But at those stage, it is already established that you are a leader and people are looking to you as a leader. But even before you get to that, they must have seen some leadership tenets in you to be able to make you that tech guy or the tech lead guy or the senior DevOps guy. Talking about like a personal story, like when I started in the cloud, I didn't just start as a senior DevOps guy, for instance. I was obviously a normal DevOps engineer, but I knew my strength, I knew my weaknesses. I capitalized on my strength, and I was struggling to improve my weaknesses. That's one thing we need to know. So like I said, in the cloud, your ability to communicate is very, very important. Your ability to show hunger is very, very important. It's impossible to say you go into the cloud and every service that is out there, you know them, every service that is out there, you can talk about them. But when you work under these companies, they know what they're looking for and they know what they're saying in you. One thing they want to see in you is hunger. And as a leader, you need to always have that hunger. Hunger to be able to learn new stuff, hunger to be able to take on responsibilities without feeling as if you're overworked or without feeling as if you're being taken out of your comfort zone. So putting all this together, it kind of builds leadership in you and your ability to be able to communicate with your peers. There are people that are very tech savvy, but they don't just know how to socialize with their peers. You know what I mean? And all these, it's not by fluke that you will see on a job description, they will say, should be able to communicate effectively. It's because they know that that's a very important skill amongst co-workers. So if they make you a manager today, it will not, for instance, in the cloud company, it will not necessarily be because of your tech skill. It will be because they've seen those other soft skills in you. Maybe if you don't know how to do something, but you know how to talk to people to ever come together and do those things. All those things is what put together brings about leadership principles in the cloud, in my opinion, at least, and from what I've been able to experience so far. So it's a bit of your know-how, it's a bit of your social skills, and when you blend, it's able to at least portray what they need from a leader, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for that. And a few things stood up for me. Number one, leadership has nothing to do with your title. So you have to be a leader without a title, taking responsibility wherever you find yourself. Number two, you have to really stay hungry, because only those who stay hungry will go after knowledge, will go after research to make things better, as well as your ability to communicate. So now, let's have Daniel. Maybe let's get from your own point of view around the same question, and also a specific scenario where maybe you found yourself, you had to take responsibility, show your leadership skills, and the outcome you had thereafter.
So once again, I want to highlight specific points in my day-to-day work as a cloud DevOps engineer.
Yes, I think Daniel's system has a maybe the sound system. Daniel, if you can check.
Can you hear me?
It's scratchy. It's a bit scratchy. I think I'm not the only one. Yeah, so kindly check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a sec. Can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yeah, this is much better than the first.
Great. Yes, so give me a sec. So as I did in my day-to-day work as a cloud DevOps engineer, there are many points that I was called to take ownership. So it can be with communicating with third-party stakeholders. AWS can be a third-party stakeholder when it comes to our services or service that is being offered to us. And taking ownership means that you have to understand what is at play. It can be that a service is down. You have to understand what is the cause, what is the root cause. And many a times, you may have limited knowledge with the respected service, but you don't have to lose composure. You don't have to lose yourself. But as an engineer, as someone who is aspiring to be a cloud DevOps engineer, I think you have to be quick thinking on your feet when it comes to an issue that you are not familiar with, or talking with third-party stakeholders or representatives. So one thing I do is to go over past events. Has this event happened before? If it's an issue with a service outage that is down, I go over past events, understand whether it has happened before, understand what can be a potential cause. Is it is the service outage due to the third party? Is it an internal issue? Is this something that has to do with a misconfiguration? Has anything changed recently? So that's what I do on my day-to-day basis as an engineer, trying to communicate with third-party stakeholders. Sometimes I'm called to be the primary and take on a ticket. And taking on a ticket means that you have to speak to these third-party stakeholders. So you have to understand the root cause. You have to go by past events, and they are always. You don't have to limit your knowledge as an engineer to yourself. It may even surprise you that maybe someone in the developer team has encountered this issue before. Someone in the developer team has better understanding. So it's always good to reach out. So this is one of the many things that I face in my day-to-day work as a cloud DevOps engineer, interacting with third-party stakeholders and taking ownership of the problem.
I think Daniel's lines were a bit shaky towards the end, but maybe let's just find out from Daniel. What are some of the biggest challenges that you found as a tech leader on your journey this far? What are some of the biggest challenges, and what advice would you give aspiring tech leaders who are looking forward to maybe having a leadership position or taking responsibility in the space?
Okay. One of my biggest challenges, I think, is mostly communication. Sometimes you are working with different people, different teams, business, you're working with a business team, you are working with an engineering team, you are working with so many teams. So the communication gap is something every engineer, every person has to work on as a tech leader. You have to communicate clearly. And one way of knowing whether you're communicating effectively is that your point is well understood. If someone, whatever message you have conveyed, whatever you are trying to communicate, if that a third party cannot understand it, then that message is not being conveyed well. So you have to be as clear and precise as possible. That is one thing I've picked up in my day-to-day work as a tech leader. Don't just focus on the engineering bits. Don't just focus on your programming, if it's your technical or skills. You also have to focus on your people skills. You are not just building tech for engineers. You are building tech for people. So this is one way you can grow as a tech leader.
Thank you very much. Maybe we'll take up the same question with Eddie. I know each person has their areas of strengths and weaknesses, and some of these challenges will cut across, almost everybody. So Eddie, maybe in your experience this far, moving from a junior cloud DevOps engineer to a senior DevOps engineer, would you say the challenges of a junior engineer would be the same or similar to the challenges of a senior engineer, or there are different? And maybe from your own personal experience, how do you describe that, so that maybe somebody who is still looking forward to get into the space, or somebody who is already there in the space as a junior engineer looking forward to a leadership position, he should already know what to anticipate and how to be more proactive towards getting to those positions? Because the objective of this session will be like, instead of getting there and getting to experience or getting to make those mistakes, they can learn from your own personal experience and get to avoid that when they get in such positions. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes, challenges are different, but at the same time, the same, if it makes sense, in the sense that, of course, the challenges that a junior engineer faces can never be the same like the one that the senior engineer faces, just for the face of it. But in terms of your mindset when you are a junior engineer, that challenges, it affects you the same way. When you become a senior engineer, you will face those challenges that are there. So challenges are unique at every level, but challenges are challenges at the end of the day. So like Daniel said, I said earlier that you are as good as you communicate. Communication is very important in the cloud. Communication is very important. And when I'm talking about communication here, what I'm trying to say is not the fact that I will be employed to work in a French-speaking country when I can't speak French, or I can't speak French properly, and I'll be expected to speak like a Frenchman. That's far from what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, whatever it is that I'm trying to explain in that broken French, I should ensure that at the end of the day, they are able to understand what I'm saying. You know, I'm not saying that for instance, for some of us that are here in the US, I have to speak like an American to convey. No, but whatever I'm speaking, I should make sure that I'm giving facts to what I am trying to say so that it is understood at the end of the day. So communication will always be a universal challenge because you always have to make sure that you communicate properly. So that's a challenge that you can never say you've reached the summit as far as you're in the cloud. You can never say, okay, right now I think I'm effective as far as communication is concerned. So that's something. So not just the cloud, in any field you find yourself, that's something you always have to keep trying to work on, your ability to communicate first and foremost. Then talking more technically now, one thing about the cloud, which I want to just do a quick comparative analysis here, and this is not this to probably somebody whose hustle is to probably open the gate and close the gate for someone, what we popularly call gate man, and this is no disrespect to that hustle. I just want to do a comparative analysis. If you are a gate man and you open and you close the gate, the first week you'll probably do that, it will become stressful. But when you do that for a year, it will get to a point that you can close your eyes and you can even open the gate and close because you know the size of the car that is coming and things like that. That is just to say you've become used to what you're doing. You've mastered it. You're doing one and the same thing every day. So you are now good at it. But one thing about the cloud is that every day we wake up, there are immersion days. Every day we wake up, we get new services come out. Every day we wake up, there are new technologies. A company that was using a platform, let's say in 2015, if in 2024 they are still using that same platform, they are regressing. Somebody who was working in the cloud 10 years ago was talking about deploying application on servers, for instance. But today, if you are a company in the cloud, I don't care if you are still an infant company or you are a mature company, if you are dealing with applications and you are not talking about Kubernetes, people see you like you're joking because we all know the importance of Kubernetes here. Now, 10, 15 years from today, we'll probably shift again from Kubernetes. So what I'm trying to say is that as each day passes in the cloud, new technologies keep coming up. Some of the technologies before you came into the cloud, you've never heard of them. Some of the technologies before you started in the cloud, you've never heard of them. But now you're already in the game. Your company wants to start using those technologies. So you are definitely going to step out of your comfort zone to make sure that you get up to speed with those technology. If not, they'll probably look for somebody that has your skill and has that skill on top of your skill. You know, so what I'm trying to say here is another challenge in the cloud, which is a challenge that should be embraced, is the fact that technology keeps changing every day and you need to keep abreast with these technologies. You need to make sure that these technologies, each technology that you see, like now everybody is talking about AI, for instance. If you are in the cloud and a part of you is not telling you to be up to speed with AI, 5 years from today, you will be obsolete. Because they will be looking at somebody who has your basic skill, which you already have, but somebody who has an X factor. And the good thing is companies, they give you privileges to be able to attend seminars and learn about these new skills. So in the cloud, it's ever evolving, it's ever dynamic. So you have to make sure that you are moving with the changing technologies. As a matter of fact, you find yourself studying more when you get a job in the cloud than before you get a job. Because the skills that will get you the job is different from the skills that will keep you on the job. That should be another topic for another day. But what will get you to the cloud is different from what will keep you in the cloud. And what will keep you in the cloud is you trying to make sure that you are abreast with all these technologies. What I knew when I started working in the cloud, some of the services I knew, I can't remember the last time I worked with them, but majority of the work I've done in cloud are things that I've learned on the go. So when you are in the cloud, your brain has to be spontaneous. It's not scary it's not something that I would say is mystifiable. It's just that hunger that I talked about at the beginning of the day. There is no service when you work in the cloud that should be presented to you to do a research on, and you're scared if you work with AWS or you work with Azure or whatever cloud platform you work with. Because every service that has to do with AWS has a Bible that you can reference from it. And that Bible is the AWS documentation. So it doesn't matter if you've heard of that service before or not, but if you know how to explore the AWS documentation, that should get your problem solved. So because you've never heard of, for instance, I want to call a very weird service here, probably Apache Airflow. There's a service within AWS like that, which I'm sure most of probably also haven't heard about, or some have heard about. But let's say you haven't heard about that service. But if I call S3, you will hear about S3. Now you have a job tomorrow. They are employing you as AWS. They haven't seen Apache Airflow on your resume, but they know that this guy is AWS. So researching anything under AWS should not be a big deal. And they ask you to go research about Apache Airflow, and you say you've never used that service. That is something you should never say as far as you're working in the cloud, because they know that you haven't used it, but they know that your brain is dynamic enough to be able to utilize AWS documentation, for instance. So sometimes when you're applying for jobs within the cloud, know that you will see services that you haven't done, you haven't utilized, but you should be dynamic enough to be able to overcome that challenges. And personally, I've had so many challenges in the cloud. Like, I've worked on a lot of things that I have never heard about, even when I was a student. So I had to learn on the job. So another challenge is the fact that you have to learn how to learn on the job. You have to learn the fact that they will present you with things to research, knowing fully well that you haven't done this before, but they are expecting you that in the course of you researching about that, you will learn about that service. The moment you are prepared to learn on the job in the cloud, you will overcome that particular obstacle, which I don't call it an obstacle even, because it's a good obstacle to have in the cloud.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying this. So you say you have to learn how to learn on the job, right? So that's an interesting one. Hey, Kevin, welcome. How is Kenya today?
Kenya, I can say it's a crazy day, but it's quite good in terms of it has been sunny. Right now it's pretty much like 5:41 to the PM local time. And what I can say is pretty much good. Myself also been well. No.
All right, nice. So just before you joined, we'll be having a great session with Eddie and Daniel around the leadership principles in the cloud and some success stories, how they're able to navigate their way through. And Eddie spotlighted again today, just like you said the last time, having leadership without a title. I think in one of our previous sessions, Veliswa made the same comments, leadership without a title. Most people are waiting to be given a title before they get to take leadership responsibility, but then we get to see it come up time and time again that for you to be a leader, you don't necessarily need to have any title around that. So maybe I would pass it over to you, Kevin. You could have questions for Daniel at this time before we take it over back to Eddie. While those in the call, we are glad to have you. In case you have any questions, you can start preparing your questions as we're moving towards the end of the session. It is scheduled for 1 hour. So you can ask your questions, you can come on camera, ask your questions, or you can drop your questions in the chat and we'll be able to respond to you. So let me pass it over to you, Kevin, as we take it with the questions you may have for Daniel and for Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Samba. Happy to host you, Eddie and Daniel. I hope you're well wherever you are. I think I didn't get an opportunity to be there at the start to exchange the niceties that we usually exchange, but it's okay. We'll do that after the call because this is on record, maybe. So I'll ask a very simple question to both of you. I'll start with Daniel because I've had some good, I've already gotten in and my notebook is already almost halfway through with what Eddie has shared. Is there's something in AWS or in Amazon in general called the leadership principles, and also something within the organization that they call raising the bar, right? So what are your thoughts in terms of how can you be able to raise the bar, raising the bar on your own? Like, there's that thing that you need to show that you embody some of these leadership principles, and none of them I usually see that people really don't do. Maybe you become a DevOps engineer, but 15 years on, you're still holding the same title of a DevOps engineer, and you're not growing and moving into becoming a leader and leading a team. What are your thoughts in terms of your own experiences, in terms of raising the bar and getting to a point of leadership where you can be able to say you're not going to leave the pipelines and start leading people?
Okay. So I would say in my experience, I believe any engineer that's aspiring to be a tech lead or take or own a lead or take ownership of a service, take ownership of a product, take ownership of a team is by being proactive. Rather than being reactive, you have to be proactive. There are certain things that when you stand back for a bit, you go by, you can see certain patterns, certain issues that may come up. So, like with many projects I've worked on, I put that principle in my day-to-day work. So when it comes to maybe, let's say a migration exercise, I'm supposed to migrate from one DB to another. I put that principle in mind, that being proactive, what may go wrong? How can I save costs? How can I mitigate any issues when performing a migration? How do I ensure that whatever I'm provisioning is right for the specific use case? And this goes a long way, not just with your engineering projects, but with your work as a cloud DevOps engineer, your day-to-day work. You should always be proactive. Always try and see any gaps, any loophole, anything that is maybe going wrong. Anything, you don't wait to be reactive. You have to take a stance. You have to take the front foot and be able to identify problems even before they come up. It's a very good principle. It's a very good way of understanding issues or tackling problems. And I know a lot of people may have different specializations or interests in the cloud, from a cloud engineer to a platform engineer to a site reliability engineer to maybe a cloud data engineer, among many others. But I believe that a role that embodies what this is about is an architect. Architect goes a long way to plan into any project with cost, with operations, with system availability and reliability. And any architect has that mindset of being proactive. So even as all of us are not aspiring to be architects, but are aspiring to be tech leaders, we should embody that principle and attitude. That's what I'll say.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Eddie. I love that. Thank you so much, Daniel, because you mentioned something that a certain senior friend mentor told me, that you should not just solve your own problems, you should also solve your manager's problems. Don't just think about you've been told to do this, you've been told to build a pipeline. Think about what is the thing that manager is having a trouble about? Is it a presentation that they're going to come say, I hear they're going to be having a presentation with the senior leadership next week. Would you need, or don't even just say, would you need, I've already created a slides on what we've been doing as a team. Would you be happy to review it and see if there are things that you can put into yours? You've already done it, and they're like, wow. The next time they think about someone who, when they raise higher, who should take up their role, it would definitely be you. I agree.
Exactly.
Eddie.
Okay. Yeah, can you just take the question one more time, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so the question was like, in Amazon, there's the Amazon leadership principles, which, there's 16 of them. There are many of them. Most people just know they learn and be curious, right? And all these different kind of things. And then there's the aspect around being a bar raiser, right? You need to raise the bar. If you achieve these, you don't linger around with your own successes. Go to the next goal, go to the next KPI and such. So what are your thoughts in terms of your experiences in terms of embodying these leadership principles and moving from just an engineer to a tech leader?
Oh, okay. I think best case scenario, it will come naturally if you love what you do and you are ready to embrace the challenges that come with what you do. You know what I mean? Like, you need to think out of the box, first and foremost. You're thinking out of the box to grow without necessarily having your prize on the title, if you know what I mean. Because like I said, titles are titles. Like, you don't go into, if you look at 10 jobs, you would not see so many that will be saying junior engineer, junior. They will just say you are coming in as a DevOps engineer. You will not really see a title, but sometimes you come in and you're doing senior role. So we all aspire to grow, but that should not be your barometer for growth, if you know what I mean. Like, it will come if you enjoy what you do and you embrace the challenges that comes with what you do. But one thing that makes you fall under these principles is if you think out of the box. It's very important in the cloud to think out of the box. And thinking out of the box is, if I tell you to take something from my car, for instance, to come give me, and you go, the door of my car was open, and you take that thing, common sense should tell you that you should close the car of the door before you bring whatever you're bringing to me. It's not because I asked you to take something from my car that you will see the door of the car open. You will say, but I didn't instruct you to close it, and you leave it like that. Now, bringing that to what I'm trying to illustrate here. In the cloud, sometimes your manager would not paint it to you black and blue that I want you to do this, but you need to take initiative. I remember I was doing a research one time on, I think that architecture should even be on LinkedIn, on Control Tower. The task I had at hand for that architecture was just to see the possibility of our company using a control tower. That was it. Just to come explain to my team, it should, based on our present architecture, because we have a present architecture. If we want to revert to using control tower, will it be advisable? Do we stand to refactor our infrastructure and things like that? So it was just for me to come tell them yes or no, and I explained to them. But what I did, I thought out of the box, and I had to give an architecture of that. I came out with a well-structured architecture of how a control tower flow is. That is just one example of how you can think out of the box. It doesn't have to be the same, but I'm just saying your manager is expecting you to do something and you surprise him with something more. Because when I remember the look on his face the day I presented that architecture. I was like, wow, this is a clear case of somebody mastering what he's doing and mastering the art of communicating what he's doing. And he had to take that architecture and informed me that when he's meeting with the CCO team to explain to this, he is not sure he's going to deliver this the way I would do. So he will bring me along with him to the board of directors meeting to sell that information to them that this is what we want to do with our infrastructure. Now, he wouldn't have, the previous day before that, I'm not sure he ever thought of taking me to such a high status meeting. But because I was able to think out of the box on a particular task, I was opportune to be in the midst of all those leaders coming together to discuss. Now that's me already knocking on the door. Not that it was my intention while doing that I want. That's what I said at the beginning. Don't put your eye on the prize. It was not my intention while doing that I want to become a senior person because of this. No, that was just me simplifying my work, thinking out of the box, and trying to impress my boss, whether I like it or not. Trying to make them, because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, you are trying to make sure that you leave your imprint in that company. Tomorrow, they should not get up and say, we have so many people in this company who is of lesser value. Your name should not be among the top 5. Why? Because you contribute extra. You don't shy away. You are always like, when something is there and they need you, you do it. So when you are that enthusiastic, when you are able to think out of the box, you start knocking some of those principles by default, by you just doing your job. The worst thing that can happen to you in the cloud is if you shy away from responsibility. If you shy away from responsibility in the cloud, you will easily be found out. You will easily be found out, because in the cloud, like I said, things are ever evolving. And if there was ever to be any form of dismissals, your name will first be on the table. Not that if you're doing your work, you cannot still be dismissed, but there are 2 forms of dismissal. There is one that you will leave knowing that I gave my best to this company, and there's one that you will leave knowing I cost it. And not that when you do all this stuff, you should just be expecting that they should promote you based on that. But you see, the highest form of promotion is the one you give yourself. The one you tell yourself that I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but I'm not where I used to be. The moment you tell yourself that you are not where you used to be, though you are not where you're supposed to be, that's the highest form of promotion. So you first promote yourself by asking yourself, 2 years ago, where was I? Where am I now? Not financially necessarily, but in terms of growth in the cloud, in terms of maturity in the cloud. So the moment you can answer that question, that you are not where you used to be, but you are not where you want to be, that's already self-realization for your path towards becoming a leader. You are a leader of yourself before you become a leader of people.
Wow, what a way to conclude. I don't think I have anything to just add. I was just writing that and was like, that should be the first statement of my LinkedIn for this session. Like, the highest form of promotion is the one that you give yourself. You really need the nail on the head. I can't even try to dilute it. Dr. Samba, over to you, and thank you so much, Daniel and Eddie, for answering my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So a leader of one is a leader of many, right? So a leader of one is a leader of many, and that's the most difficult part of leadership. In my own experience, the most difficult person to lead is yourself, because it's easy to tell every other person, do this. It's easy to tell people, read books. It's easy to tell people, be consistent. It's easy to write things and, share it out to your team and tell them, make sure that you do something about your cloud journey every day. Make sure that, but the question is, are you doing it yourself? Right? I see Eric is laughing. It's easy just to write out those SOPs and tell people, okay, this is what we have to do. But the most challenging thing is leading ourselves. And so if we can lead ourselves, then we can lead others. Thank you so much. So we can see a couple of questions already in the chat. As we wrap up this session, the question and answer session, I'm going to just pass it over to maybe Kevin. You're going to read out the questions. For those who want to come on camera and ask their questions, that would still be great. You can maybe direct your question to whoever on the panel you want to respond to your question. This exercise is going to take 5 to 10 minutes, and then that'll be it. All right. So maybe I'll come again at the end. While we're doing this, these sessions are also an avenue to broaden our network. So you can drop your LinkedIn handles in the chat so that you get to connect with every other person. You never can tell. You could have somebody on the call here who's working in company A, B, C, D, that through this encounter, you can connect, network with them, and then you could get a recommendation, get a referral to work in, because one of the things at SolaviseTech is we're not just coming here to train people, just coming here to do podcasts out of excitement, but our objective is to connect talents to opportunities globally. And we are really passionate about doing that, especially for the African market, right? So these are one of those avenues that we get to network and we connect with each other. So you can drop our LinkedIn handles in the chat, while maybe Eric can equally grab the links to our different handles and equally drop in the chat for those who are not in the WhatsApp groups. You can equally join or follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you. So Kevin, over to you for the last part of our podcast session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Samba, for that. So let's just get on, and as he has mentioned, you can feel free to use the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature. We'd also love to get some of your questions also live. So Silas is asking, I wish to ask Daniel and Dedi as cloud engineers, what they look out for new entrants. That is, I think, new people coming into the DevOps space. Maybe we can start with that one. What do you really look out for in your organizations, or when you're in that interview panel looking for engineers or something getting into DevOps? Let's start with Daniel, then go to Eddie.
So I've been fortunate enough to interview a number of candidates, and what I look out for is even the simple things count. There are candidates when even they send in an application, a CV is not a well-formatted CV. They just take a picture of a picture. So the CV they even submitted, there's not so much quality in the doc. It can barely see. You know that this is a picture someone's taken of their CV of a screen, and it really tells a lot. So what I look out for is the little things. Your CV can be one. A CV is supposed to talk about you. It's supposed to present who I'm supposed to be working with. If you don't put in dedication even in your CV, there's no way I'm going to shortlist you. It's definitely going to reflect in a candidate. Like, put in your best when it comes to your applications. If the application is requiring you to submit a CV, it should be well formatted. It should give a profile summary of yourself, clearly the tools you have used, the technical skills you have, or any other skills you have. And it should basically describe you as a person. I don't know you at all. So my first interaction with every candidate is their CV. I think with things I also look out for is, like we have already mentioned on the call, self-learning. You always have to learn. And tech is an ever-developing specialization or a field. It doesn't stay at one place for a long time. Over the course of maybe 5, 10, 15 years, tech changes over time. I always say this. My lecturers probably used to write programs in C or COBOL. We are doing writing programs in JavaScript, C#, Python, Golang, among many others. And not forgetting Java as well. So it's an ever changing field. So you always have to learn. The self-learning habitude should be there. And one thing I used to measure self-learning when it comes to candidates I've probably interacted for the first time is, I look at your certifications, whether you're taking certifications. I look at whether you're taking courses. Just by looking at these things, you may even have a 30 minutes YouTube course on your CV, but I find it very, very interesting that this candidate is always and ever ready to learn. So these are the things I purposely look out for in candidates or engineers when it comes to hiring.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Daniel. How about you, Eddie?
Okay, yeah. I think taking that question probably from another angle, I'm assuming that probably the person is asking like about what they're expecting when you do land that job, like when you do get the job. Now, if you do get the job, I think a little it's a little bit of this and that, like Daniel said. They don't expect you to just come in and be that messiah. No, they just want to see that hunger from you, and they just want to see that the things you had on your resume, you are able to at least have ideas about most of them, because most of them you've worked in environments that use them, but some of them you said in your resume that you're really savvy about them. So it's just a case of if something comes up when you had that thing on your resume, you should be able to have an idea or two to say about it. So that is to say, stop putting things on your resume when you haven't had an idea about them. You don't have to be savvy about them, but you must have an idea about them. Yes. And to be very honest with you, most environment will give you the ability to grow if they see the hunger to learn in you. Learning does not mean that you have to go and start opening your books, but when they give you, there are tasks that will give you give and take. They're expecting you to be done in 2 weeks, even if you've not heard of that task, because they know that even if you are to do your research, give and take 2 weeks, you should be done. If you are spending a month on a task that even if it is your first time of hearing, you should be done in 2 weeks, now that's inefficiency and ineffectiveness. That is where it becomes a red flag. So don't be going into your first job thinking that you have to just have answers to everything. There will be a room to grow. There will be that room to grow, but your brain has to be dynamic enough to quickly be adapting, picking things up, making use of YouTube, like we talked about. All these things are online. Everybody researches. Everybody goes to Google. Everybody uses YouTube. All these things, we use them all. It's just to know where to look, what to look for, and where to look for it. So don't think that they will be expecting so much from you. No, they will just be expecting to see somebody that is ready to contribute to the company and is ready to grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really I agree with you on that. Like, really check out on things right now. Even with AI, as you mentioned earlier, even these 2 weeks has now become like a week, because as long as you can be able to get, you no longer have to search through a web page. You've loaded it, then you realize after you've read the half of it, it's not what you really wanted. You can use something like ChatGPT, then direct you to a particular link, then go deeper. And as you also mentioned earlier, the AWS documentation, if you're dealing with AWS, is the one to go to. It has almost everything that you would need for any particular service. Then Daniel has a question, but it's not Daniel, our panelist, but Daniel ME is seeing a question from my end to Eddie and Daniel. When you are introduced into an organization as a junior entry engineers, how did you handle the psychological part of it all, moving from someone that just did projects to know how to work and collaborate in a broader system, in a wider system? We can start with you, Eddie, then move to Daniel.
Yes, it's the same. The person that asks, I want to say this, it's the same feeling you had the very first week you started working where you're working. Even if you're a teacher, even if you work in the warehouse, the feeling you get when you just get into your new job, it's the same feeling. It's nothing we just mystify it because it's in the cloud, but it's a bit of excitement and fear, which is normal in every field. Trust me, this podcast, the comfortability that Doug and his crew are handling it now, I will not think that is the same comfortability they had the very first edition, right? Because you didn't know how it was going to go. That is a normal feeling in every walk of life. I'm very sure the very first class that Eric handled as a teacher, and the nerves on that day is not the same nerves he has today. Today, he can just get up and start teaching. So that's the same thing you have in the cloud. You have a little bit of fear, excitement. the feeling is overwhelming, but that is a normal thing. I don't want you to think like that is just specific to cloud. So you will have that excitement because you are starting your journey in the cloud. You have that fear because, oh my God, they talk about pipelines. I've not really seen a real-time pipeline. They talk about dev, stage, and prod. But you realize that after 1 week, your problem is no longer about, I've not seen dev, stage, and prod. Your problem is, okay, how do I start doing this merge requests and stuff? Because you have passed the first hurdle. How do I know about backlog? You've passed that. You know, there is a lady, which I'm not going to mention the name, who started work 2 months ago. The very first day that lady started work, if you saw her on Sunday that she was to start on Monday, you will not believe that that lady will last a week on that job. Because she was overwhelmed. She was just like, I'm just feeling as if I will be sacked the next day. You know, she was getting to me every second, when she started her work, every minute she would just get to me like, I'm afraid I'll be sacked. I'm afraid I will be sacked. But 2 days ago, I realized that for the last 3 weeks, she has not gotten to me. I sent her a message that me not hearing from you is a good sign. And she started laughing. So she has already started dealing with the stress in a positive way in her workplace. So, and when she started getting to me, I told her that there will become a time you even forget that my number is in your phone, which is a good thing. You know, so it's a normal process. When you get there, that excitement, a little bit of fear will be there. But as every day passes, you will realize that you are becoming more comfortable and you are gradually becoming used to the environment. Even if you buy a new house today, you will need time to adapt to that house. That's the same thing that happens with your job site. So that shouldn't be an issue at all.
Amazing way of putting it. No other way, no additional subtraction. I can see Millie saying time is a healer. Daniel, over to you. You're muted. You're muted.
Hello, guys. Yeah, so I want to share my experience working. So I had a shock of my life when I transitioned from a cloud consulting company to a SaaS company. So a cloud consulting company, the focus is on cloud services, maybe using specific tools, right? Software or a company that produces software as a service. The focus is on the software, and then there's so many things that had to do with building the software I wasn't familiar with. So with our microservice, with high availability, with scalability, with our systems uptime, and a lot of components. So from third-party stakeholders and all that. So what helped me overcome this is Google. I always say this: Google is your best friend. You're in a meeting with developers. So in my previous company, my meetings were with fellow cloud engineers or DevOps engineers because it was a cloud consulting company. This time, my meeting, I have the infrastructure team, you have the developer team, all in that meeting. Sometimes they make mention of a software terminology I'm not familiar with. I quickly Google because I don't know. I have to pick up. Don't feel bad when you don't know. Just note the things that you should know. And if they do mention something, it probably means you should know it. So just take note of it. Google, when you have time, you can do a short video or course on it. Understand it, have a foundational understanding of it. So that's my personal experience from transitioning from a cloud consulting to a SaaS company.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I know Dr. Samba Zedi was saying that we now really get comfortable on these sessions. I already have an inkling feeling that Dr. Samba is pinching me that you better be done with those Q&A questions. So I'll just ask one more question and then and then I'll take it back to him. So since you already asked Silas' question, maybe that one you can ping it up somewhere, because I know we have also been handling it across the session. So I'll just finish up with this layer question to Eddie. What leadership traits or habits do you think are the most important for dealing with really high stressful scenarios at work? Maybe you can paint a picture for us. You can unmute. Eddie, you can unmute first.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, very high stressful situation. I think Daniel touched on it previously. Just have that ability to communicate. Your co-workers will always be there to help you. Most things about these software companies is that if you're in a good team, which more probably you will be, it's a thing of we want our team to succeed, not I want to succeed. Nobody is trying to bring another person down because your jobs do not align. So always learn to communicate with your coworkers, because there will be people that are there before you. There will be people that understand the systems better than you. So if you are in a very high pressure job, as you try to find your feet, know that your best weapon is communication. It doesn't mean that you have to wait to be in a meeting to start saying, I'm having difficulties with this. No. If the four of us here are on a team and you are having difficulty, you can ping me. They have mediums of communication, Slack, Teams, Google Chat, and things like that. You can get to me personally, like, I'm working on this. Can I set up a call with you to make sure to discuss this? Maybe you have a better idea that we do that every day. We do that. You can work in a company for 3 years, you still don't understand all the systems. But there are people that have worked on those particular systems, so they have knowledge on that thing. So you ping them, you have a call with them, you discuss that. That's not showing that you are inefficient. That is part of the job. That's collaboration in your workplace. It will even be a question mark on you if you have something you are feeling stressed and you sit on it because you want to figure it out yourself. That means you are not a team player. So to overcome that, you just be a team player, know that, a problem shared is half solved, and it's for the betterment of your team at the end of the day. So don't sit on something and die on it. Always communicate, always ping the next person to troubleshoot with him. That's how that's how I work with my colleagues. The way we work in my environment, we can, if we are having issues, we can decide to focus on your issue today. We work it out. Tomorrow we focus on mine. At the end of the day, it's for the betterment of our team if we are having issues. But it doesn't mean that you take an issue, you don't try to look for solution first. Because if you are coming to me with an issue, I must first of all see that you understand the issue, you understand the problem, and you've probably started solving, and not that you will just take a problem, since you've never heard about it, you just say, this is the issue. So it's a little bit of work from your side and a little bit of work from the team as a whole. Just like any walk of life, collaboration is key. That's what we're doing here, right? Networking.
Exactly. You mentioned something. You've also reminded me one thing. One of my leaders ever told me, if you had the choice between over-communicating and under-communicating, over-communicate. You better ask those questions. You better say, you have been able to do this. Don't think that people know what you're doing. After you finish a certain task, go to the Slack if you're on Slack. Use the multi-DM, tell the group, we've now been able to finish these, and maybe so-and-so, you check it out, and just over-communicate. That's very, very important. Daniel, I think it wouldn't make sense for me not to allow you to answer or add anything before I take it back to Dr. Samba.
Okay, a quick add. I remember one time I was asked to work on an AngularJS project, sorry. At the time, I was a bit new to AngularJS, and I started my cloud journey with a bit of dev experience. So I was working on an issue for about 1 or 2 weeks, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And later on, I think after the first or second week, I reached out to a senior colleague who has been on the team longer. And he said, Daniel, if you are working on something and it's taking you more than a day or two, reach out. Don't spend too much time on it because someone has probably worked on it before. So this is just to add on that we are not custodians of knowledge of everything. Probably what you are working on, another colleague has probably worked on it before, seen it before, solved the issue before. So rather than spend a week or two trying to resolve an issue that can take maybe a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, you should do that instead. Don't spend weeks on solving problems that have solutions already. Yes, of course, do your research, have an understanding of the problem, give it a shot. If it's taking longer than necessary, don't hesitate, reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was a Q&A. And maybe I know Dr. Samba, if there's anyone else who want to have a burning question. I know Eric always has a question, but I'll take it back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Kevin, for being such an amazing co-host. And I want to appreciate Eddie and Daniel for making out this time once again to get back to our community. Eddie has always been there from the start of the vision to see that everything works out smoothly on the technical sessions and now the podcast non-technical. And this was birthed out of the fact that, a lot of people are good when it comes to the technical, but what do they go say in the interviews has always been a challenge. And so we're looking at these sessions to be able to help build on the soft skills of individuals as well. So we're going to be wrapping up on this call in the next 3 minutes. So we have Michael. While Michael comes up to ask his question, I would like every other person to come on camera so we can immortalize this this day. You can make sure you wear your best smile, you're in the best background, and you can, do a LinkedIn post about your learnings, about your journey, tag our panelists, tag SolaviseTech, tag us, the host, tag every other person that you got to connect with on this call, and just share your learnings. You never know who is watching on LinkedIn. You have probably your next big deal is going to come from the post you're going to make from this particular session. Just let's come on camera. Yes, Michael, you have the mic.
Yeah, Mr. Samba, I have a quick question. I'm currently my background is not too good, so I cannot come on camera at the moment. But my question has to do with the previous submission of Mr. Daniel, right? He was saying something like there was an instance where he was working on like an issue with respect to, I think, Angular that held him for, I think, 2 weeks or so. So I actually thought it was like something that was wrong with me, that sometimes when you are working on certain things, like something that someone can work on for like, it will take very little time to work on, it takes you so long to work on it. And then from what he's saying, I actually realized that it is actually something that you are going to be coming across most of the time as a tech person. And if you are not the kind of person who has like the habit of lifelong learning or like constantly learning to build yourself, then you are definitely not going to survive in this ecosystem, because it is actually like that. And then my actual question was with respect to, you see, sometimes you are working on something and fine, it is challenging, maybe you haven't met it before, and you reach out to your colleagues, they explain it to you, all right, but you don't get it on the spot. Even though sometimes you are able to like deliver the solution and everything, but you don't get it on the spot. And then you resort to like falling back to learn it in the background. And then what else? I mean, as you're learning it in the background, like other things are also adding up. Like it's just like, I don't know if I should say it has something to do with workload or something, but just that kind of situation. I have been in a couple of those situations and it hasn't been nice. So I was just asking, like, how do you handle like situations like that, Mr. Daniel?
And so every task you assign has a priority to it. I don't know what methodology that's adopted in your company, but every task that is assigned to each and every member of the team has a priority to it. Is there a high priority? Is there a low priority? Is there mid priority? So try and tackle the high priorities firstly. And if a task is taking longer than necessary, like I said, don't spend 2 weeks on it. It's something I learned right away. And unfortunately, that was an intention. But if there's within your sprint, how many points sprint points is attached to that task? Is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 1 point? So you use that as a measure. If, for example, you have been assigned a task and you have been assigned 5 sprint points, that's like 5 days. And by day 3, you're still struggling with it. Please don't hesitate, reach out. You have done your research, you have done your part. I for one, I like reverse engineering. I go and check our current systems, especially our cloud systems. Is this something that has been done before? I realized that, for instance, I think this week I was assigned a new task. I wasn't familiar with. We're supposed to expose a domain object, to expose an object in an S3 bucket over a domain. I wasn't familiar with that. I've never worked with that before. So I just went back, checked our system. That was a similar configuration. And I sort of reverse engineer the entire process. Oh, you need this. You need a CDN. You need an S3 bucket. You need to set an alias to your domain that is pointing to a CDN. So it's sometimes you learn the hard way, but sometimes you can also take advantage of the resources you have. It can be your senior colleagues. It can also be learning on a job as well. So that's a little bit from my experience.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I see we all have a question on YouTube. Someone says, how can I become a cloud engineer? I am from an arts background. That's totally fine. For those people who are joining for the first time, you know that I'm a medical doctor and I don't have any tech background, no engineering background, but I was very curious. I was very hungry and I saw how tech could help me be able to create opportunities for others. I saw how tech could help me become a better version of myself. I saw how tech could help me, looking at how the world is changing today to become, a better citizen. And I decided to go all in. So I want to say that if I could do it, then you can do it. So Eric is going to drop right there on YouTube a link to an orientation, because today's session, we can't give you an end-to-end orientation on how to become a cloud engineer, but that video will help you, have a high-level understanding of what it takes to become a cloud engineer and how we can help you to become a cloud engineer. So as we move down the line, we're going to be starting off another training in the month of October that you can follow an end-to-end, whether you have a tech background or not. The good thing about cloud is that it doesn't need any heavy coding background or any heavy IT engineering background for you to be able to break into it. And so you'll be part of a community that can hold your hands to walk through. So let's get on camera and then we can immortalize today's event, and that will be it. I see there are no other questions. Thank you everybody for joining once again, and let's keep encouraging each other. Let's keep doing this. So Elisha, if you can be on camera, that would be great. Silas, Emmanuel, Zisa. Oh, I see Eric. Okay, so I see like you have a question or a feedback.
Yeah, it's both a feedback and a question. Yeah, it's just one feedback from today's podcast. As more, we are getting to these sessions, we realize that there's always something unique about each session, right? And I don't know if people actually see the value, because I see beyond just the value. There's so much in these sessions, more than just the technical knowledge, but what I've been getting from here personally, it's really been a lot. I don't know for other people, because at the end of the day, when we just go back, we don't know the feedback, we just like, okay, we wait for the next podcast to come up. But to me personally, these sessions have quite been enriching. So my question or the issue I have is, I realized that from the beginning of this podcast, it's like, let me say 70% of what we talked about is rising and falling on communication, right? Most of the things we talk about rise and falls on communication. And it doesn't only cut across the tech field, but in every sphere of life. So now, given that when we go for interviews, right, most of us here that get jobs, right, will definitely pass through an interview. And when you are going on the interview, they only focus on your tech skill. They only ask you those technical questions, right? And they don't take time to even to evaluate your soft skills, this communication particularly. So how do we tackle it? How do we tackle it? Because nobody focuses on communication. Nobody talks about communication when you are training or even in your interview. So I don't know who can pick up the mic and help us answer that question. Thank you.
I was kicked out a little while, so I missed part of your question, Eric. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I can take it over. So I was saying, for the past almost an hour that we've been talking, more than an hour, we've said everything, most of the things we talk about, the rise and fall on communication, right? Most of what we've discussed today, rise and falls on communication. Yeah. And now, on the other hand, you see that when you're going for your interview, most of us here, we've had jobs, right? Or those who are, want to have jobs, we definitely go on an interview. And they only focus on your technical skills. And even during your training, you focus on how to build, how to do stuff, how to learn, but you forgot about these soft skills of communication. You go on an interview, the interviewer is only focusing on asking technical questions. At the end of the day, where do you find yourself? How do you tackle this communication now on the job? Okay. Or what should be the strategy, or what should be the strategy in terms of recruiting to solve this communication?
First strategy is what we're doing here. When they say people come on camera and ask questions, you should be bold enough to do that. That's the first part to overcome that. Secondly, when you're attending interview, you're talking, you're communicating. Thirdly, Eric, you're a teacher. So what I would say is that if you've not been doing this to your student, Dr. Samba probably needs to deduct your salary, because you need to have sessions with your students where they come on camera and they talk to you. You have to make sure that your students are always on camera. You have to make sure that you have sessions with them where they do, call it expose, where they talk. All these things we learned while we were having we used to have workshops, and I know you do them a lot, right? So you have to, you can't be perfect at it when you get in, but at least you should have confidence to talk before you get it. Because when you get, your students should be able to share their screen and do a presentation in your class. That's all part of them, you building that in them before they even get into the job market. So I know you do that. So I just want to say you should do that more, and you shouldn't minimize what you're doing. It will help them. Imagine getting into the field, you can't share a screen, for instance, So you need to just make sure there are students that will always be shy, but you need to make sure that you take it back to them that if they didn't attend this session, you just came out from this session with the fact that you might be tech savvy, but you need to communicate. There are people that are still shy to be on camera. Being on camera is a big deal for them. So when they get into an environment and you have to be on camera, they are confused where to place themselves, where to be, they are fidgeting. But when you're coming in showing that, okay, you've not been doing this even while in school. So it's something we should encourage, you guys should encourage at SolaviseTech for your students. Have sessions where they just come and you just sit and they talk. It will not make them perfect, but it will start building that culture of communication in them. So that would be my response to you on that. And that was just a diss. Mr. Samba shouldn't dare with your salary, please.
Thank you so much, JD. Thank you so much. I think I wasn't only I do it. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. So thank you so much. We've officially come to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Eddie, for making up this time. Thank you so much, Daniel. I want to appreciate each and every one of you. We have two Daniels. When I call Daniel Dodo, the other Daniel, Emmanuel, is smiling. So Daniel Emmanuel, you attract the blessings of Daniel Dodo, right? So thank you, Silas. Thank you, Solange. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Asaf, Emmanuel, Zisa, Louisa. And as we grab a quick screenshot in the next At the count of 3, we'll get a screenshot of this, and then we'll call it a day. All right, let's get on camera, guys. Thank you, Ransom. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. We'll get it again. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Thanks, everyone. And it's on this note that we officially come to the end of today's episode of our Saturday podcast. See you on our next session. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.